What's up, nerds? This is Deej Penalo here from the Nerdtalkalypse podcast network, and I'm here to talk to you guys about Patreon. Patreon.com/Nerdtalkalypse podcast network. If you become a patron, you pay as little as $1 per month, recurring. That is $12 per year, billed monthly. That is less than pennies a day and hardly noticeable when it comes out. That is less than you pay for a coffee or a Coke. Now listen, when you do this, you gain access to an exclusive patron-only RSS feed. You can add that RSS feed to your favorite podcast player. That will be the home of the Nerdtalkalypse podcast bonus shows provided by individual hosts within our network. That being Robert and Colton from Bridging the Geekdoms, me, or Lane from Nerdtalkalypse. That is a really dope deal, guys. We're working really hard to provide you guys more content from within the network. And this will include other Patreon exclusive shows. Head over to our Facebook page. It's facebook.com/Nerdtalkalypse. We have a group for the Nerdtalkalypse podcast network. You can join Bridging the Geekdoms, all that good stuff. Got a lot of stuff coming. So if you could consider maybe heading over to patreon.com/Nerdtalkalypse podcast network and just putting $1 on the line every month. That would be extremely helpful.
What's going on, everyone? Robert from Bridging the Geekdoms here, and I'm by myself. I've got no Colton with me. This is going to be a short, quick little episode here because some interesting news came out today regarding Star Wars and, well, not news, but rumors, I should say, and I kind of wanted to talk about it. So that's what I'm going to do here because that's what I want to do. All right, so how's it going, everyone? Okay, so there was a rumor that has surfaced that is stating that Disney is actually or has been looking to replace Lucasfilm president Kathleen Kennedy. And the rumor states that it's following the disappointment of Solo Star Wars story. Now, this is coming from Beyond the Trailers' Grace Randolph, who claims that she's heard Disney CEO Bob Iger is interested in replacing Kennedy but can't find anyone for the job. It said that J.J. Abrams has already turned down the position, as have a number of others, and that reportedly boils down to the fact that there are so many people within Lucasfilm who are loyal to Kennedy's leadership. Now, I'm reading this from comicbookmovie.com. It also goes on to say, this should, of course, be taken with a pinch of salt for now, but it's food for thought and definitely somewhat believable. After all, Solo was something of an embarrassment for Disney, and we've heard from more reliable sources that the studio is going back to the drawing board with these movies. So that is kind of interesting. Again, that's from comicbookmovie.com. The author of that article is Josh Wilding. So I know this past week on the podcast, I sat there and said, look, this stuff with Star Wars, it's kind of getting out of hand. This whole idea that Kathy Kennedy is the reason that that Star Wars is ruined. Again, that's not my words. I'm not saying it's ruined, but there are many out there, many people who believe that Star Wars has been ruined since Disney acquired Lucasfilm. Now, again, you have to remember that it isn't Disney who is running Star Wars. It isn't Disney who is putting out the stories for Star Wars. No, it is Lucasfilm. Lucasfilm is 100% in charge of all of the product that they're putting out when it comes to Star Wars. You also have to remember that Kathy Kennedy is in charge of Lucasfilm, not just Star Wars. All right, they do have a Star Wars group, story group, that works out all the details and figures everything out, all the minutiae and all that kind of stuff when it comes to the story and where they want to take that franchise and saga. It isn't Kathy Kennedy sitting there in a room saying, you know what, I think we should do this, I think we should do this. No, she's entrusted multiple people in a story group to come up with these ideas and figure out where they want to go with everything. Now, that isn't to say that they're not giving these writers and directors and everything the ability to do their own stories and their own ideas. They have. If you take a look at Rian Johnson's The Last Jedi, that was very much a product of his imagination, from his mind. Now, mind you, they do have a structure. They do have somewhat of an idea of how they kind of want everything to end. I'm not going to say it's like this has to be done, but they do have somewhat of an idea of, okay, in this trilogy we want to get from here to here. All right, how the directors, how the writers, how everybody, the creative team behind those movies gets there, that's up to them. But they do have a point A, point B type of idea and strategy. Now, did that come about before they started filming the trilogy? Probably not. And I think that is partially to do with how quickly they rushed to get these films made. You know, Disney bought Lucasfilm for $4 billion. And I know I just said, you know, Disney isn't the one that's telling Lucasfilm and making Star Wars. But you can damn well be sure that they went to Kathy Kennedy, who is the president of Lucasfilm, and said, hey, look, we just spent $4 billion on this. You need to get some things moving. You need to get some things made. We need to make this money back. Yes, they've made well over $4 billion since the acquisition. Is that all profit? No. Have they been profiting yet? Probably not yet. But they're pretty damn close to getting to that point. And if they continue doing what they're doing, I'm sure they will get there in a matter of time. Now, you can sit there and also say, well, each Star Wars film has been a failure. Even some people consider The Force Awakens a failure. Not financially, obviously, but critically. They think that, you know, fans just don't like it. Where critics loved it, fans really don't. Same thing kind of happened with The Last Jedi. Critics, you know, really enjoy the film. Yeah, I think The Last Jedi might be a little more divisive than The Force Awakens was, but still, it made over $1 billion. It's still more well-received than people give it credit for. Rogue One, with all of its issues it had, again was well received. It made a lot of money. It did what it was supposed to do. It was pushing the Star Wars saga and franchise forward in a new direction. Solo was a damn good film. People just didn't go to see it to know that, and that's kind of unfortunate because it was a very good film. It was not a necessary film. It wasn't a film that Star Wars absolutely needed, but it was an enjoyable film. I mean, you can sit there and say that the expanded universe with Star Wars, none of that was needed. A large chunk of it was actually crap, while another large section of it was awesome. So even before Disney purchased Lucasfilm, before Kathy Kennedy was in charge of Lucasfilm, there were still issues within Star Wars and everything like that. Like, the expanded universe was not perfect. There was a lot of issues with it. So the fact that people are sitting here saying that, you know, Disney or Kathy Kennedy destroyed Star Wars is, I think, way out of context and way out of hand. I'm not going to sit there and say that I've enjoyed every single thing that they've done since Disney has bought Lucasfilm, because I don't. I'm not a big fan of the Forces of Destiny or whatever that cartoon is. That's you know, like, what is it, like 5-minute, 10-minute cartoons. I don't. It's not targeted for me. It's targeted for kids. I don't really enjoy it. I've had some issues with, you know, their two video games. They're not as good as I was hoping for them to be. Now, Battlefront 2 the storyline was amazing, but, you know, again, it was your typical first-person shooter. It wasn't anything spectacular, anything special. But things are coming up, I think, in that front. So I'm looking forward to it. The films, I love The Force Awakens. I really enjoyed The Last Jedi. I do have issues with The Last Jedi, and I've talked about that in the past. But I don't see that there's so many problems that you can sit there and say, oh, Star Wars is ruined. I think people are they're blowing everything out of proportion. They're taking everything way more serious than it needs to be, because movies are supposed to be an escape. I get that people have this love for Star Wars, and have always loved Star Wars, and, you know, will continue loving Star Wars until the day they die. And what people need to realize, though, is Star Wars is here to stay. Star Wars is not going anywhere. It is here before I was born. It's going to be here long after I'm dead, as it's going to be with many of you who watch Star Wars and love Star Wars. It's just the facts. That's how it's going to be. It's how it's always going to be. You know, we see that people are creating petitions and GoFundMes and stuff like that to create a new Star Wars Episode 8. That's just ridiculous. Just ridiculous, okay? Not every franchise is going to have hit movies 100% of the time. Not everybody's going to love every single thing that comes out 100% of the time. That's just fact. I mean, you can look at what people consider the most successful film universe right now is the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Not all of those movies are good. Some of them are kind of bad, but people give it a pass because of the universe it's in. People give it a pass because they know, hey, something else is coming out, and it could be better. It could be just as good. Nobody's given Star Wars a chance like that. I understand that we had the issues with the prequels. The prequels were, unfortunately, not as good as some people would have liked for them to have been. For one, I love Episode 2. I think I like Episode 2 more than a lot of people like it. For some odd reason, that's like that somehow was dropped below, and the mainstream media, or not media, but like the mainstream fandom, like Episode 2 is somehow dropped below Episode 1, which is baffling to me, because Episode 1, while a few weeks ago I did watch it with my youngest son and gained a new appreciation while watching it through his eyes, it's still just not a good movie. I mean, from start to finish, it's just not a good movie. One decent lightsaber battle does not make a good movie. It just doesn't happen that way. But Attack of the Clones, Episode 2, I think was good. Revenge of the Sith, Episode 3, I think was a fantastic film. So you got to sit there and you got to realize, like, okay, 2005, Revenge of the Sith came out, and people really enjoyed it. After having the rocky road to get there from Episode 1 to there, Lucas pulled it out. Lucas was smart about it. He got some help from his friends, from Steven Spielberg and from different writers and stuff like that, to make sure that Episode 3 turned out better than the previous two films did. Everybody gave him a chance. Even after The Phantom Menace was such a disappointment, even after the CGI was so horrible in Episode 2, people still gave Lucas a chance, and Lucasfilm a chance, to correct it for Revenge of the Sith. Why are we not doing that now as a fandom? Why is it so different 15 years later from then? I just don't get it. I just don't understand. I think that people need to sit back and realize this is entertainment. This isn't life or death. It's something to be enjoyed. If you don't enjoy it, move on to the next one. It's that simple. They're not destroying your childhood. They're not destroying something that you love. No, they're moving a story forward in the way they best think it to move. Are you working for Lucasfilm? Are you a writer? Are you a director? If you are, then call them up. See if they'll hire you. Try and get hired there. Help them out if that's what you feel needs to happen. Otherwise, sit back and just, what? It is what it is. Fandom anymore in all mediums, in any fandom, is really becoming why fandom is not enjoyable. And that totally negates what fandom is supposed to be. Fandom is supposed to be joyous. It's supposed to be something that you become a part of when there's something that you like so much. I'm not going to sit here and say that, if you're sitting here bashing The Last Jedi, you're not a true fan, or you're not a fan of the Star Wars films and saga, blah, 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 that kind of stuff. You see that all the time on Facebook and Twitter and everything like that. You see people freaking out like, if you don't like The Last Jedi, you're not a real fan. I don't care what you say. Well, no, that's not true at all. Like, you can be a fan and dislike something. Absolutely. I'm a fan of the DC universe. I really have started to dislike Suicide Squad. Every time I watch it, it's gotten worse and worse. That doesn't mean I'm not a fan of the DC universe. I'm a fan of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. I really hate the movie Captain America Civil War. I think it's a horrible film, but that doesn't mean I'm not a fan of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. You see what I mean? So I'm not just coming out and, telling the people who hate Star Wars now that, they need to chill out. I'm also telling the people who are still fans of Star Wars that you need to chill out, because you're not helping the cause any more than the people who are sitting there saying that Star Wars is ruined. You're not, because you're creating a hostile environment, and it's just making it not fun anymore. And that's why we get these news stories like we're getting, where Kathy Kennedy is looking to be removed from Lucasfilm and stuff like that. Could it happen? It's very possible. I'm not going to say that article and what that person stated is incorrect or that it's false. It could happen. Like I said, though, Lucasfilm was aware of what was going to happen with Solo. Again, I don't think that they thought that it was going to make only $400 million. I'm sure they thought it would make closer to like the $700, $800 million, around the amount that Rogue One made. but it didn't. Is that completely Kathy Kennedy's fault? Well, she's the head of Lucasfilm. She's the scapegoat. She's the one that will have the fingers pointed at her because of that. So, okay, you can sit there and say it is her fault. But it's as much the fault of the fans as it is hers. Boycotting a movie because you felt that it destroyed your childhood or ruined your saga that you've grown up with. Like I said, it doesn't ruin your childhood. It doesn't ruin anything besides you just being butthurt. Like, that just doesn't make sense to me why somebody would freak out that much about a film, and boycott something so much. And I said this on this past week's podcast. You sit there and you don't like The Last Jedi. Okay, I get that. There's times when I dislike movies and franchises. That doesn't mean I skip the next one, especially when the next one isn't even connected to the one that I disliked. That just doesn't make any sense. I can understand people saying, you know what, I didn't like episode 8. I'm not going to see episode 9. That makes sense. But the fact that you're going to sit there and say, episode 8 sucked. They ruined Star Wars. You know what, that Solo movie that has nothing to do with that, it doesn't have the same directors, producers, or anything. I'm not going to watch that because, you know what, they screwed up episode 8. It doesn't make sense. It just doesn't. You can sit there and try and say, oh, it's Lucasfilm and we have to boycott them because they're making crap movies. No, they aren't. They aren't. Out of 4 movies, 3 of them have been critically and financially huge and successful. Even The Last Jedi was critically and financially successful. So really, okay, we'll say before Solo 3. Their 3 movies were all critically acclaimed and financially successful. They just were. Fan-wise, yeah, it was kind of split with The Force Awakens, and it was kind of split with The Last Jedi. Rogue One, I see more people saying that that's their favorite Lucasfilm or Disney-era Lucasfilm Star Wars movie out of the 3. But when you sit there and think about it, you're going to boycott something that has been critically and financially successful because you're saying and made up in your mind that it's not successful. It makes no sense. It just doesn't make sense. Again, like I said, it would make sense if you're saying, I'm not going to watch episode 9 because 8 was so bad. If you felt that, that's fine. I get that. But saying that you're not going to watch Solo made no sense. And even coming from me, somebody who felt like Solo was unnecessary. It was not needed. They didn't need to even make that movie. I was against them making it. I had no real intentions of wanting to see it from the moment they announced it. But because it's Star Wars, I went and saw it. And I want to support the brand. You know why I want to support the brand? Because eventually, even if they do make something bad, the more they make things, the better chance is that we're going to have more good. It's just that simple. You sit there, you talk about these comic book movies that are coming out all the time. Yeah, I complain about some of them, but I never not go see them. You know why? Because I want to put my money into that franchise or into those types of films because I want to keep seeing them. I want to keep seeing those movies. I want to keep seeing them, and I hope that even if I see a bad one, that the next one will be better. And that really has happened over the past 15, 20 years with comic book movies. If you take a look back from, the early 2000s to now, comic book movies have grown tremendously, and that's only because fans have continuously gone to watch them and see them. Some of them were good, some of them have been bad. But because we continue to go see them, they're going to keep making them, and we've been getting better and better things. Same thing goes with Star Wars, and I think people need to realize that and understand that. Kathy Kennedy possibly being fired, I'm going to get back to that. I don't think it's the right move. I know there was a rumor a while ago that Kevin Feige was going to take over. Why would they remove Kevin Feige from the Marvel Cinematic Universe? He has built that over the past 10 years. Maybe he's tired of it. Maybe he wants to leave. Okay, I get that. But he has built that over the past 10 years. He is the mastermind behind the Marvel Cinematic Universe, one of the most successful film universes, if not the most successful film universe of all time. So you can sit there and, say, oh, yeah, that'd be a smart idea, bring Kevin Feige over. Just because he knows comic books and knows how to create that universe doesn't mean that he would be able to come over and run Lucasfilm, which is not just Star Wars. It does have Indiana Jones in it as well. What, do you want them to cross Indiana Jones and Star Wars over? I think there was a comic book years ago that already did that, and it was horrible. So, again, prior to Disney, Lucasfilm screwed up on some things. They did some things with different companies, with different comic book companies, and they screwed things up. It wasn't all peaches and cream prior to the Disney acquisition either. So, okay, so Kevin Feige, could he possibly fix it? Maybe. But what is there to fix? There's nothing to fix. They're still making a shit ton of money. The only thing that I think is interesting, and I've felt is interesting since the Disney acquisition, is their toy sales. Their toy sales have been plummeting from Episode 7 on. I don't know exactly why. I don't think they're handling the merchandise quite as well as George Lucas did, because you're going to remember, that was how George Lucas made his big money, was merchandise and marketing, because when he got Star Wars made, his contract was he got 100% of the merchandise. And because of that, he made sure that the merchandise was out there, was sold. Everything that kids wanted, he was making sure that they got. Nowadays, I walk into my local Walmart and I see, maybe, if I'm lucky, 1 or 2 rows of Star Wars figures for $9 a piece, and they're nothing special. Like, there's, who wants Rose Tico? Who wants, Maz Kanata? Like, those aren't characters and figures that you want. And I think that's kind of a big problem also. Like, and again, is that Kathy Kennedy, or do they have another marketing team through Disney, through Lucasfilm, that is failing at that? I have no idea, but I think that's one thing that they could focus on and making better. Again, does the blame go on Kathy Kennedy? Who knows? They know. I don't know. You don't know. But, essentially everybody is talking about the film universe and Lucasfilm. They do have another Indiana Jones film lined up. Steven Spielberg, Harrison Ford, even John Williams. The big 3 that need to be involved with it are all involved. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, George Lucas will have some kind of input on the movie as well, which is fantastic. You're getting that whole team back together. And some of you are going to sit there and say, oh, well, they got back together for Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, and that sucked. Okay, yeah, I can see why people think Kingdom of the Crystal Skull sucked. I personally think it was better than the Temple of Doom, so I don't think it's the worst Indiana Jones film, but that's besides the point. You're bringing back these people, and they know where they screwed up. George Lucas has always been one who understands that he screwed up, and he will do what he can to fix it. Now, he does have a vision all the time, so he always wants to do what he wants to do, but he is willing to move and adjust to fix things. Again, he's not going to have too much say in the new Indiana Jones, if any at all. Like I said, I can't remember. I thought I saw something where he was going to be involved, but I could be wrong about that. And I'm not looking it up right now while I'm talking, so there's that. But again, even Steven Spielberg, who's been involved with every single Indiana Jones film, he knows that the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull was not received very well. So he'll know not to go that same route. He'll know to rectify and fix the mistakes that he's made. And Steven Spielberg is a hell of a filmmaker. He knows what he has to do. And Harrison Ford, he's, even at almost 90 years old, he's still a hell of an actor. So we got that going for us as well. So, again, you sit there and you talk about all these things when it comes to Star Wars and Lucasfilm and everything, and you sit there and wonder, is it really all that bad? Just because there's a bunch of butthurt fans out in the world does not mean it's all that bad. Maybe Kathy Kennedy gets let go. Maybe she does. Maybe she gets fired. Maybe she gets moved into a different position. Who knows what's going to happen at that point? I don't. You don't. Bob Iger, the head of Disney, he may not even know at this point. All of this could be hearsay, or it could be true. Who knows at this point that isn't directly involved with it? I do know this, though, that I think as a fandom of Star Wars, as a fandom of anything Lucasfilm, I think that instead of constantly bickering and fighting with each other and, Last Jedi sucked, Last Jedi was great, this sucks, that's great, I think it's time that, we get back to what made Star Wars so great in the first place, and that was the fandom. And just the ability to, you see somebody walking down the street with a Darth Vader t-shirt or, some kind of Star Wars t-shirt, and that person, you'd be able to start up a conversation with that person without any problem. That's the important thing. That's what made Star Wars so great. I remember I worked at Hollywood Video for many years, And every time a new movie would come out, I would, wear Star Wars T-shirts, or I'd take my real effects Star Wars lightsaber and put it on the counter behind me. And it was little kids who would come up and see that, and they would just be so excited, like, oh, Star Wars. And I'd talk to the kids about Star Wars. I'd have adults, I'd have teenagers come in, and like they'd see my shirt on, or they'd see me playing Star Wars on the TVs in there, and it was a conversation starter. We didn't sit there and talk about or bash anything, despite some of the expanded universe being, just crap. We didn't sit there and bash anything about it. We had a discussion. We talked. We enjoyed Star Wars. We said what we loved about it. We said what we couldn't wait and what we hoped to happen in the future. Today's age, it's not that anymore. Today's age, it is, oh, did you watch The Last Jedi? Sucked, didn't it? Yeah. And then I sit there and say, you know what, I don't think it sucked. I kind of enjoyed it. Yeah, there's some parts that I could have done without, and there's some other issues with it, but I don't think it sucked. Oh, you're crazy. You're an idiot. You're just a fanboy. You just don't know what's good. Like, I've had conversations like that. That doesn't make fandom fun. Yes, I can sit there and agree with everything you're saying. Oh, Last Jedi sucked, right? Yeah, it sucked. And everything's fine, but that's not fair. Like, I'm not going to sit there and say, oh, you're wrong for not liking Last Jedi, because that happens as well. If I've seen people on Facebook, Last Jedi sucked. Oh, you're crazy. You're an idiot. This is why Last Jedi was awesome. And then there's just a fight happens, and that's got to stop. And I think that's what's going to help save Star Wars, in a sense. Because, like I said, I don't think it's terrible. I don't think the saga or the writing or Lucasfilm or anything like that needs saving. I think the fandom is what needs saving. And I think that's what is, most important, because that's what makes it so enjoyable. That's what makes it fun to, sit at home with your kids on a rainy afternoon and just pop in some of the movies and enjoy them. That's what makes, going out to the theater and watching a movie, talking to the people waiting in line, that kind of stuff. That stuff is what makes it fun. Going to, comic conventions, going to Star Wars Celebration, that kind of stuff is only fun when everybody has an agreement that, you know what, this is awesome because we all love the same thing. Yeah, there's some things that have gone bad. But things have been going bad, and there have been issues with the entire franchise for many years. Instead of focusing on that, instead of fighting with each other about it, let's just enjoy what we're watching, what we love, and move forward from that. I think it'll be kind of funny because, I'll post this up later today, and probably tomorrow we'll get word that Kathy Kennedy is fired and, Bob Saget is now running Lucasfilm or something crazy like that. And people are going to sit there and complain about it. It doesn't matter what happens. There's going to be people complaining, and I think that's the problem. I think people need to lower their expectations in a sense, and just enjoy the fandom. Enjoy Star Wars for what it is, for what it's always been. It's an escape. It's something to enjoy with your family, your friends, people you don't know. That's what it is. It's not about what is made up in your mind. It's not about what you wrote down on your blog. It's not about any of that. I've done the same thing. I've come up with, Star Wars stories and like, oh, wouldn't it be cool if after Return of the Jedi, this is what happened? Even before Episode 7 came out, I wrote like this whole blog about like, oh, this is what the movie should be. Wouldn't this be awesome? People liked it, people hated it. That's how it's always going to be. What you have in your mind, you like, but that doesn't mean that anybody else will like it. Just like what Rian Johnson did. Just because what he did, that doesn't mean that everybody has to like it. Because of what J.J. Abrams did, that doesn't mean everybody's going to like it. That's, film is subjective. Stories are subjective. That's how it works. I don't like The Phantom Menace. There are some people who love The Phantom Menace. My co-host on this podcast, Colton, he enjoys The Phantom Menace. I don't. Does that make me wrong? No. Does it make him wrong? No. We don't sit there and fight about it. We enjoy Star Wars for what it is, which is why we have a Star Wars episode occasionally of our podcast, because to us, we love Star Wars. We enjoy talking about it, and that's what fans need to do. So whether or not Kathy Kennedy gets fired, whether we get Kevin Feige in there, J.J. Abrams, Rian Johnson, whoever it is that takes over Lucasfilm, if that happens, it shouldn't matter, because it's about Star Wars. If the movies end up sucking, if the lore ends up getting really bad, guess what? You can walk away from it. You can walk away from it and still watch what you loved. Whether it's episodes 1 through 6, and if it's the holiday special, whatever it is that you loved, you still have the ability to watch that. And knowing and understanding that there's other stuff out there should not ruin what you have loved and what you grew up with. And I think that's pretty much all I'm going to say about it. So yeah, I just wanted to bring that up, talk about that. Nice little almost 30 minutes here that I talked about just Star Wars, but something that was on my mind. I saw that post, and there are some people freaking out about it and everything. So yeah, with that, I guess, I have been Robert here from Bridging the Geekdoms, and I guess we'll talk to you later. Hello, sir. What can I do for you?
Howdy there, partner. I'm in the market for one of them new internet radio show t-shirts I hear so much about on them applications.
T-shirt, you say?
Yeah, one that'll catch the eye of my lovely lady friend.
You know what? I think I may have something right up your alley.
Oh, do tell.
You see, we have this awesome Hanes tagless tee with the slick logo of Nerdtalkalypse Podcast Network on the front, with all the awesome shows listed on the back: Nerdtalkalypse Podcast, Fandom Vibe, and even Bridging the Geekdoms.
Well, I'll be a horse's patoot.
That's right, and you can get that all for the low cost of $17.99 at teespring.com, as well as coffee mugs, stickers, tank tops, and hoodies.
I'm gonna have to get me one of them stickers for the back of my pick-em-up truck.
That's excellent, man. Just log in to teespring.com/shop/Nerdtalkalypse Network and order yours today.
Yeah! But wait, why did I walk into a store if you're gonna send me to a website?
What's going on, everyone? Robert from Bridging the Geekdoms here. Hey, did you like what you just listened to? Because if you did, make sure you hit that like, that follow, that subscribe button. That way you can get all of the updated and brand new podcasts from Bridging the Geekdoms podcast. And while you're at it, check out our buddies over at Nerdtalkalypse Podcast and the Fandom Vibe. Hit like, subscribe to them, listen to them, give them a shot as well, because, we're one big happy network at Nerdtalkalypse Podcast Network, and, we want to spread some love, and this can only happen with you, the listeners. So definitely hit those up, hit us up, make sure you follow, like us, comment on our Facebook group, join in on our Facebook group, do all of those fun things, so that way you can be more involved with what we bring to you. Thanks for listening, everybody.